Yes, my name is Jakob. I'm an urban planner at the administration of Copenhagen, the city of Copenhagen. I work at the city architect's office, and I do local planning and overall land use planning for the city, inside the city administration borders. This lecture today is about the solutions that we have come up with. It's about the planning principles, and it's about the challenges that also Copenhagen has in regards to the price levels going up, in regards to the climate changes, and also in regard to keep up with the livability levels that we have reached during the last 20 years. So this is kind of an overall view of how we developed during the last 20 years, and I hope this gives you a good view on how to develop a smart and sustainable city. It's a great pleasure to be in Belgrade. It's my first time here. Like Gorana told me yesterday, she's a child of Yugoslavia. And, I'm kind of a child of Europe in the sense that my mother was born in Romania, and she moved through Germany to Denmark. And, so I have Hungarian, Romanian, German, Danish ancestors. So in this sense, it feels right to be here. I'll start this presentation by just showing you this image of Copenhagen to give you a sense of what it looks like, and it's comparable to the city outside the windows here. It's a classical city. It's classical squares and public spaces. This is the King's Garden, one of the parks that we have in Denmark, the city. And this is the existing city part within the old fortifications. Copenhagen has become extremely successful in development over the last 20 years, and these few images here are to show you how this development took place from industrial use to residential and office use, which is the dominant at the moment. And these are just some of our harbor areas that turn from industrial and work use to new developments like these here. Anyway, this is the area that is close to where I have my offices. It's over here, and all of this used to be industrial land. These are old silos that have turned into residential housing projects. Some of the most expensive in Copenhagen right now. These two used to be from Copenhagen Oil Storage, and it shows you the new connections across from the existing city here across the water. We have this harbor crossing through the city, dividing the city into two. This is another image which shows you one of the most famous popular squares in Copenhagen at the moment, which used to be through a passage for cars and tramways and delivery trucks. And this is now turned into this open pedestrian street, which is one of Europe's and maybe the world's longest open pedestrian streets. And this is just one of the examples of political decisions that led to totally radically different change in the city core. There was an outcry from all the shop owners 40 years ago when the plan was done to have this pedestrian street here. And now this is one of the most successful of the city, both according to the urban life that is going on, but also the shops that have itself through by people walking by in slow space, and they just visit so many more shops when you go by foot or by bicycle, instead of taking a car, driving to a specific destination and leaving it. Just in short, the story about Copenhagen. Why do people come to Copenhagen in big numbers at the moment? My everyday work life, I show around a lot of people at the lectures at our city administration, and people are very interested in learning about how we found the solutions for Copenhagen. And these are the topics that are the most top of the list. Like bicycles, a lot of people use their bike on an everyday basis. That's good and safe biking infrastructure. Then Copenhagen is special in the sense that it has a very human scale. Its buildings do not exceed 5 or 6 stories. We have a few towers, but that's about it. It's a very safe and secure city, and people use it more and more. Plus, it feels safe and secure in our city. Then, of course, the location due to the water and the harbor sites is a specialty, and livability has been a topic for the last 10 years, and it's now top of our priority to keep investments and to keep people moving to the city. We're supposed to be the happiest people in the world, according to some magazines. And last year we were Europe's green capital. We did a lot of conferences and stuff like that. But bicycles are a major thing. 50% of all Copenhageners use their bike on a daily basis to get from A to B. This is in all kinds of weather, even when it snows. And that is also because they feel secure. You can see that the traffic is divided into a bike lane. And then you have the heavy traffic out here, buses and cars, and the sidewalk over here. The human scale, this is a typical image of the inner city core with small houses dating back to the 16th, 17th century. And in developing the city, we try to maintain the scale. These housing projects are about 6, 7, 8 stories, but still it's at a human level, it's a mid-rise development. And we always try to keep these small indicators of the history that was in the place intact. So this is one of the new canal districts that we're building on former industrial lands and fishing harbors. So you still have the water and the fishing boats and the leisure yachts here and the small summer house cottage-like structures together with new development. So we always ask our developers to maintain some of the structures and reuse the structures that are in place. To maintain part of the history and also create a character and an identity for the places. Then we have the proximity to the water, which we have become better and better at using at this point. So you see here the harbor extending through the city. This is the Öresund region, the strait that divides Denmark from Sweden. You can see the Swedish coast up here. And we've built a bridge connection which comes from the island of Amager and connects Malmö and Copenhagen, the two major cities in the area. So the harbor is deindustrialized and it's open for new uses like housing, office space, but also new parks like this one. And this park, actually close to the harbor, would have been developed if it wasn't for the community living there. And they put pressure on the city not to sell this land, but to develop it into a public park, which is now one of the most popular in all of Copenhagen. And it also contains one of the harbor baths that we have in the city, which is another story about sustainability. The water in the harbor is not so clean you can swim in, you can drink it if you like it. So this has been the development over the last 20 years that made this possible, aiming city planning and sustainability efforts at the same time. So the harbor industry has gone, and we now have to use this water surface for different purposes, and it's mainly leisure and activities like these that take place because there's no longer any big boats coming through here. And we also build new places and urban spaces like this. It's an artificial beach park close to the Öresund along the coastline of Copenhagen, which is a project that was done 10 years ago, which is now a huge public place for water activities and for people to hang out and to go for long walks. Otherwise, we've been working on a lot of new urban spaces throughout the city. So whenever there's a space available, we try to convert it into a new public space that can be used by everybody, and health and movement and connectivity are always at the top of the list when we develop new parks and urban spaces like this one. And in this case, this is a former site to maintain our tramway system, which was abandoned 35-40 years ago. So instead of ripping this apart and building new structures, we've reused these old facility working structures, which now is a community house and a place for people to work out, and a sports facility in here. And it's free of use. Everybody can go and use it on an everyday basis. And also we try to induce movement and sports facilities and the opportunity to use your body at any place you can to promote health and people to use their bodies instead of just being carried around by buses or cars. Another thing is that we work on traffic calming whenever we can. This is one of the major roads leading into Copenhagen through one of the bigger neighborhoods. which is now closed off for through traffic. So we also have to find a different way. It's now only buses, taxis, and people living in the area being able to use the street. And instead of cars, we now have widened bike tracks and sidewalks, with the effect that we didn't plan for. That now this bridge here, which is the Green Elizabeth Bridge, connecting Nørrebro and one of the neighborhoods with the inner city, the people and young people especially hang out in this place and have parties and sit there during all night and drinking and talking. But also because of the development in the neighborhoods, different neighborhoods, people feel safe and secure. You have temporarily, like this one, actions, street parties, people gathering in the public spaces, which they didn't used to and were not used to before this. And it gives them the opportunity to meet with their neighbor and create a stronger community by using the public spaces and not keeping them for themselves in their private space. We have an architectural policy that has promoted better architecture and principles for developing of new areas and new buildings. So these are some of the examples, and like I said before, we always try to treat the area with respect. So still these are modern structures and new layouts for a way to build housing near to the water, but it still has this connection to the old harbor site and the industrial site. And we always plan for mixed-use developments. So this housing project is right next to an office project, right next to a big shopping mall. So you make sure that people are in the area 24/7. When people are going home from work, the workers come back home and stay in their apartments. So you always maintain this kind of urban life around the different city parts. We promote competitions to find the best solutions for the specific places in the city. And this is one of the major state and city-based investments. This is the Royal Playhouse, and whenever we have the money, we try to induce new cultural functions and services for the citizens of Copenhagen. The ambitious climate goals have been developed over the past 15 years, and we have a climate plan that has a goal of reducing carbon emissions by 50% over the next 10 years, over the next 5 years, and we want to reach zero by 2025 in 10 years. And the climate changes and the reaction to this seep into our design and the design of our urban spaces whenever we can. We have to make sure now that our urban spaces are laid out in a way that they can adapt to the climate change and the heavy rainfalls that we experience in these years. So it's a design that promotes less asphalt and hard concrete surfaces, but trying to put as much greenery and penetrable surfaces whenever we can. And we support grassroots initiatives like this one. This is a rooftop garden, one of the biggest in Northern Europe. And actually this little structure here is one of the most famous restaurants in Europe at the moment. It's impossible to get a seat there because this is a biodynamic restaurant which produces food from the produce which comes right outside of the restaurant. So it's both containing a community action building site with the sustainability and the new cultural function or leisure function like a restaurant. At the basis of this is a strong layout for our planning principles, which is the 5-finger plan, which was laid out in the late 40s by some of our famous professors and his students. So the idea is that you have this inner core of the hand, this is Copenhagen, the inner city, where at that time we had all the workplaces and the industry. And this was done to create new connections to the suburbs by laying out 5 fingers, which now are turned into light train lines, which connect the outside communities with Copenhagen. And the wedges between the fingers that emerge here are supposed to be kept free of buildings. So we have this principle that whenever you build developed cities around these new train connections, you have to make sure that the space in between remains green and is a free space for the people living there. To prevent that Copenhagen just spread out in this whole area as one big building mass. This has actually functioned for the last 50 years, and even though this was not the officially adapted before 2007. This has always been the principle of the development of the metropolitan area. So this now is the new layout for this 5-finger plan, which is now with a small 6th finger down here, which is the new city development and the connection to Sweden. And we now look upon the Copenhagen-Malmö area as one big development area, which is connected across the Sound region. And because life has changed in the city, industrial workplaces have moved out, and people move into the city instead. You have workplaces, you have people who live in Copenhagen who move out of the city every day to work. And we have new radiant connections between those fingers, which are both railways, light trains, and also freeway connections. But still maintaining the system of keeping the wedges between the fingers free of development, more or less. Just shortly, planning in Denmark, the system is laid out in this way that we have the National Planning Directive, which is the framework for all of the country and the major cities. Below this, we have the municipal development plan for cities like Copenhagen. So we do an overall plan for Copenhagen, which is this development plan for all of the city, the land use plan, the spatial and physical development plan. And below that, there's the local or detailed plan system. And I do a lot of detailed plans in my everyday work, which is plans for maybe one building, but it can also be an area of 100 hectares with hundreds of thousands of square meters developed, where we have detailed regulation of how to build, what to build, and what the space is supposed to be used for. And the purpose is to balance private and public interests, to make sure that everybody's heard, that we have the right input for our planning, and also to secure public interests and the interests of the private developers that induce money and wealth to our cities. And this is just in short the layout for planning, which a local plan usually takes the amount of 52 weeks. This is our goal by the city administration. But about a year to develop from the first negotiations with the developer. It's usually a developer coming in with a project and we discuss it and eventually do a plan for it. We have a working agreement at this point. Then we do a startup sometimes, which is a document for politicians to approve of the first ideas. And in this process, they approve of us doing the local plan. And when we have the layout, when we have the first plan proposal, this is processed by 3 commissions, by 3 committees of our politicians, the technical, the economical, and the overall city council. And after that approval, the plan proposal is sent out in a public hearing for 8 weeks. So everybody has a say in this process. And after that hearing and the results of the hearing are processed, we can approve the plan finally. So this is a process of about a year. And the municipal development plan has narratives like these ones for 8 development areas, which have this layout for the city, how it should be developed, and what should be the identity and use of the different spaces. And one of these areas is the Northern Harbour, which is turned from industry to housing and new office developments and cultural functions, still maintaining functions like a small container harbour and these huge boats with tourists coming in the summer and during the late spring and beginning of the autumn. We are about to develop this first section here, and this is a plan for the next 50 years. There's going to be a metro line connecting all this, connecting to the existing city metro, which we built 10 years ago. We're now building an extension of it, a city ring, an extension to the southern harbour. And the layout is that all the dirt that's being dug up by the developments is reused to make new peninsulas into Øresund and create this kind of small natural habitat for animals and for people to use as a free space. It's a mixed-use development of housing and all different other functions, workplaces, and also trying to maintain some of the structures existing there, to maintain the history of the place and to create some identity for these places which are this Nordic harbour site. This is a vision of what it's going to look like from the tour boats coming in. Another thing is an industrial area, the Carlsberg Brewery, which has moved to the mainland. Now they only have their headquarters here. And all of this is to be developed into a new city consisting of high-rise buildings, but very dense development of housing and office and cultural spaces. So this is also a test bed for how dense we can build in Copenhagen, still maintaining enough free space. We have this free space regulation in our plans that maintains that not all of the area is covered with buildings and asphalt, but makes sure that people have their backyards and their communal spaces to use in their spare time. And this is one of the first tunnels being developed close to the light train, S train, and the national railway coming through here. And we're actually moving this station, which used to be up here, closer to Carlsberg to make sure that there's a big connection between the workplaces and the public transport leading into it. And another area is Eurostar, which is this new development in what used to be marshal lines and military training site. This was done as a startup for the connection between Denmark and Sweden. We had to finance the new bridge connection, and it was a decision by politicians in the state of Denmark to emphasize the capital area. So this land here is to be developed with new housing and office spaces, and the surplus coming out of this is used to create new infrastructure in Copenhagen, like the metro, and like the connections, train connections, light train connections, and the connection to Sweden. So there was split up a development company owned by the state of the city, which is operating on a private basis, selling land and then using the money to create new infrastructure. And this is one of the master plans that was done in the 90s after a competition, which is kind of this modernist big-scale plan, and we're already working on new versions of this, using the knowledge that we have about city life, about urban space, where you have this initial idea of this big, huge park right next to protected land, which is also free space for people to use. We're now narrowing this new city park to a more intense but more usable space in our view. And we have this lower scale building that is consisting of both townhouses and higher buildings. And blending in with new functions like a new arena, like the one we have right here in the suburbs. And other functions, there's going to be a skating ice rink right next to this one, and blended in with housing and office spaces. So we always try to create mixed-use areas with workplaces and housing. And this is being constructed at the moment, and actually the city of Copenhagen has put in 300 million kroner, which is about 40 million euros, I think. We have a private investor helping us. We have this fund aiming at developing cities in Denmark, and they have a large containment of the old pension funds from the Danish National Bank. And they now use this money to develop city buildings and urban spaces. And they create stuff like this. They do urban space, and they work all over the country, and are a happy factor in developing cities like with functions like this one. This is in short about the architecture policy, which is not only about architecture, but also about the character of the place. And within the architecture section, we also have contains thoughts on sustainability, sustainable building, and the principles for building sustainable. We have a big focus on urban spaces, like I showed you before, and then it's about processes. We make sure that there's architectural competitions, that the public is always involved in development, and that we also work better with the public and private people involved in these projects. And if you look at this picture here, the development of Copenhagen, this is a drawing from the 17th century, and if you compare it with the picture taken back 5 years ago, it's almost the same structure kept intact in the city. And this is one of the characters of Copenhagen that we try to maintain. It should not be like a huge hub in the middle with high-rise buildings, but trying to maintain this human scale all over the city. And trying to find out what's unique about the different neighborhoods, and then introduce this into our own planning. So these are some of the main goals of the architectural of the chapter about character that you should develop, still maintain your structures like you showed before, and cultural heritage, and try to maintain this low scale. And also make sure that everything is connected, and that we maintain sustainable solutions wherever and whenever we can, to create a diverse and sustainable city. And some of these goals also to connect the city in better ways. So this is one of our new bike lanes crossing the harbor. This is a 300 meter wide long bike connection. It's only for bikes. We have pedestrians down here, and this connects to a new bridge for both bikes and pedestrians across the harbor side. This is the urban space I showed you before, and the main goals are that we should maintain the quality of life, inspire to use these new public spaces, and also heighten the level of our urban life and livability in the city. And you saw this before, it's about healthier and better use of the urban environment. This is one big stretch of park done by big architects. And this was also a process where this is placed in the middle of Nørrebro, which is this multicultural center neighborhood in the city. And one of the ideas which determined the competition, I think, was that they were using, they had done analysis of that there's 57 different nationalities living in this area, both from the Middle East, from the Balkans, from Germany, from the US, and so on. So this place was fitted with urban or city appliances like benches, water fountains, and this I think it's a Russian or maybe Serbian original. This thing here is kind of it's for kids to play on. But at least they made sure that the people living in this area got some of the city designs from their own countries to create this space. And it's very popular, everybody uses this, and it's created a whole new community around this place where everybody meets and can meet different cultures and meet the people living right next to you, which you didn't know before. Another thing about urban space is that we want to emphasize the potential of building meeting in the urban space outside it. So we have stressed to the architects and people developing the city in the past 10 years that they have to work in the area between the building and the public space to create kind of a buffing zone, also inviting people in, but creating open facades in the lowest floors, and make sure that there's a connection between the inside and the outside, so you don't have long stretches of closed facades in your city, heightening the sense of security, but also making that connection and creating better city life in the city. And again, processes, the main goals for this urban sustainability, and using architectural advisors, debates, networks, and preparation meetings of community and developers to create these new spaces and make sure that the public's interests are maintained and that the knowledge and input of the communities in the places that are developed are kept at a high level. And we always try to introduce architectural competitions to heighten the solutions. This is another strategy that we call a metropolis for people, trying to induce better urban life in Copenhagen and trying to create a more livable city. And this has only 3 goals. The approach is now where we used to plan for buildings and then thought about the surroundings and the traffic system afterwards. We now have reversed the process and think about the urban life that should take place in these locations before we build the open space and before we do the buildings. So you have to make a program for what's going to happen in this area when you develop an area. Then you have to hire landscape architects or other experts to create the urban space, and then we think about how should the buildings be designed to make sure that the urban connection, the connection between the common space and the private space are maintained and kept intact. And the goals for this is more urban life for all. We want that 80% of Copenhageners to be satisfied, and we reached these goals already. So we are at the moment working on a new strategy, which I will show you after this lecture. We want people to walk more, increase the level of create better. We want pedestrians to have better conditions and to create better connections throughout the city. And just a second. I can see this is a long lecture. And want people to stay longer. We did an urban life account trying to measure the goals, which most of them were reached by last year already. But we have this urban life account where once a year we try to do countings in the streets, see how many people move through, how many people stay in the different areas, and have this account. Also to show our politicians that this urban development of urban spaces actually pays off. And how our new connections throughout the city are a vital part of developing Copenhagen. And whenever we have the opportunity, we try to create small sections of urban spaces that are useful for everybody. We try out initiatives like this one, where people can try to decide on where to put the trees in the urban environment, and try to open up for new initiatives and grassroots initiatives, and creating an atmosphere where people are using their open space much more than they used to. There's also an office working on temporary actions like art in the city, like events like the marathon or sports events, closing off the city for traffic for 2 days and making this possible. Fashion Week event where I think this was the world's longest catwalk through our pedestrian area. And we've eased up on the regulation for vendors, shop vendors and small accounts around the city, making sure that there's coffee and sausages for everybody everywhere. But creating an atmosphere where small vendors can put up shops and try out initiatives. And this is an urban space in Carlsberg where until the development takes place, they have been experimenting with different uses and art projects and urban space projects, which are going to be abandoned or taken away when the development actually happens. The challenges we face at the moment is that Copenhagen is growing in large numbers. We are becoming 1,000 more Copenhageners each month at the moment. We have been doing so for the last 8 years. And we expect this to keep on going. And this is both children being born in the city and staying in the city, and also influx of immigrants, people from Denmark moving to Copenhagen. So we expect by 2025 to be 100,000 more people roughly than we are today, within the same space in the city limits of Copenhagen. So we expect about a number of about 650 to 700,000 people living in Copenhagen within the administrative borders in 10 years. We need cheaper housing because the prices in Copenhagen have gone through the roof. It's very expensive for people who don't have the money to buy an apartment to establish a home in Copenhagen. And we are doing subsidized housing. Like this is a test for a new townhouse containing 2 to 3 floor apartments, which are at a price level that people like teachers and police officers and other people with low incomes, with average incomes can afford to live in. We also have a lot of students due to local universities placed in the city, and they also have a hard time finding a place to live. Students in Denmark normally don't live with their parents, they move out when they're about 18, 19, 20 years old, and then they have to find a place to live, which is affordable for them, because they live on student loans. So we have an aim to build 6,000 to 7,000 more student homes during the next 10 years in Copenhagen. So at the top of all this development, we want a city for everybody. We want it to be affordable for everybody. We want families to stay in the city, and it's also a goal to maintain people living here because they create good tax income to maintain and build new structures. Then we have the climate change issue, which is about more and heavier rainfalls, and we also know that the sea levels are rising around the city, which is a big topic. This was flooding caused by a cloudburst 3 years ago, where in a cycle of 5-6 hours we got so much rain, which usually falls within a month. So it was just heavy rain for 5 hours and all of the city was almost flooded. Never experienced that before. And this has happened 2 or 3 times at different levels over the past 5 years, so now our politicians are ready to do something about this. So the climate plan has this goal of becoming carbon emission neutral, but we also have to adapt to the weather and try to lower the influence of city development on the climate, which is one thing. So the themes are energy consumption, energy production, mobility, and city administration being kind of an ambassador for good sustainable solutions. We now have approved of this project, which is trying to lower the impact of cloudbursts and surface water in the city. So we're going to build a new structure of drainage systems all over the city, which is then based on this map, which shows it's a hydraulic map of Copenhagen showing the passages in the way of the water through the city. And the idea is to build a structure that leads the water away from the different neighborhoods and ends up in parts like this one, artificial lakes within the city, and finally leads water out into the harbor and the Grassroots region. And this contains of these big pipes going through the city pipelines, and then there's 300 to 400 smaller projects that have to be built over the next 10 years, 50 years maybe, extending on this web of water management, which our politicians then approved by the year budgets. They take 5 to 10 projects a year and then try to extend this net of new water management, climate change measure. And this calls for a new way of creating urban space. So, like I said before, we reduce the amount of hard material in our surfaces in the urban spaces and try to introduce more open green space. And also accept the fact that when there's heavy rain, there's going to be water in the streets, which not only would be that way to our sewage system. Now we try to use water in a different way, surface water, to achieve architectural goals and to use it for everyday use. So you can imagine small ponds being built for cities, for kids to play in. And if there's a dry season, then this will be dried out. After heavy rainfall, this will be filled with water. So we will have urban spaces that sometimes are filled with water, sometimes they just dry out. Can maybe be used for skateboarders instead of swimming. Another thing is the sea level rise, and we are thinking about closing off the harbor in a way in these 2 locations here to make sure that the harbor is not overflowing. So this would be kind of a system where we can shut off the harbor, or maybe building new islands outside of Copenhagen, lowering the pressure by storm clouds, and maintaining the sea level within the city. Another alternative would be to build 3 or 4 or 5 meter higher edges around the harbor, all over the city, wherever we want to do this. So this is going to be developed over the next few years, maybe in connection with other cities around Copenhagen and other communities, ending up in new structures and maybe creating new islands able to be developed with new urban housing and other functions, but at least lowering the pressure of sea water going through. Mobility is very important for us. We have this metro system which was introduced 10 years ago. We have the light rail trains, and in our plan we try to connect these different modes of traffic wherever we can. And you can take your bike on the trains, both the metro and the light rail trains, also the national train. So make sure that people use their bikes, maybe use a bike from their home to a nearest station, and put their bike on the train and go to their workplace or education or school. We also have partnerships with providers of electricity for electric vehicles. And these usually get parking spaces for free. So if you have an electric vehicle or you have a company providing share car systems, they can use these parking spaces and make sure that they get electricity from these stands here. And it works in a way that you get a membership. So you have a card, you put it in there, and then the amount of electricity that you put into your car is taken from your bank account. And usually the idea is that these the electricity should come from wind turbine or other sustainable energy forms. I showed you this before. It's the bike stake, because she was lucky as expression for a bike tube. We have this other bridge connecting the harbor, and we're building more bridges connecting the different parts of the city across the water. And these bridges are mainly for pedestrians and bikes, to promote bike use and to promote better use of the city, connections to the city. Lowering the time to get from here on with another bridge and to this part of the city by 20 minutes. Smart city solutions are being worked on at the moment in a way that we can use central systems and use digital, use big data throughout the city to make better solutions. And in connection with these new canals and new drainage systems, we can, for example, measure the pressure of water in these systems here. We can, to maintain our city, try to reduce essentials in our trash cans to make sure that nobody, when the city administrations drive to this one when it's not filled up. And on the other hand, when it is filled, you maintain it right away. We have intelligent lighting systems that are being introduced now. We have LED lighting all over the city now in our lamps, using less electricity. And all in all, trying to connect Copenhagen by using big data. And the idea is that we have this open data source, providing people and businesses with the data consisting in the city, sharing it instead of maintaining it. And instead of the city creating new data solutions for the citizens, we try to open up our own data and then try to inspire companies and the users themselves to create new solutions in the way to use these. And the big idea is to have this kind of big control center where you can use all kinds of data to create better solutions, both for sustainability but also the everyday maintenance of the city. And you can introduce new functions like wayfinders, like tourists, help for tourists to find their way through the city, to find the nearest bike track, whatever they will use it for. So we have this small hub of 10 people in the secretary working now, trying to develop new solutions with the universities, with the businesses and the citizens of Copenhagen, trying to get new solutions. The last part of this lecture is about this new energy plant. One of the goals was energy consumption and production. And in Copenhagen, 98% of all households are heated by central heating. And the heat and electricity is produced in this place by burning waste from the citizens. This burning facility, which is right on one of the islands close to the city center, is now being renewed. And big architects years ago came up with the idea that they should do this renewal, and instead of just creating a new facade in this place, they wanted to introduce a ski slope. So we now will have this big ski slope in the middle of right next to Copenhagen, on top of this burning facility. And the idea is that this chimney is putting out smoke rings, indicating to the people how much waste is being burned today. and also creating an awareness about sustainability issues about the production of waste in general. So this is an image of, they have an idea of this glass elevator leading up to the top of the ski slope, and while doing this trip you can have a look inside this burning facility, looking at all the trash being processed and burned in here. And eventually you have this this connection of sustainability, a power plant in the middle of the city, and this new urban space for people to use and to improve their skiing skills. Because Denmark is flat like a pancake, we don't have any slopes, so we have to go to Sweden, Switzerland, and Norway to ski. And this place here will produce heat and electricity for 140,000 households in Copenhagen, the outside of Copenhagen. This was more or less, this is my 5-year-old daughter practicing her roller skills. I just want to show you a small film about this new strategy that we're doing, and I'm producing. Not the film, I was working on the strategy as well, along with a lot of my colleagues. And this should give you an idea of the new solutions we're working on, and the strategies and the principles for developing Copenhagen solutions. This will be a strategy that has to last for the next 10 years.
I samfundet, som ingen professionelle, ingen planlægger, ingen kommunale medarbejdere har fantasi til at begribe alene.
Fællesskab København hedder Fællesskab København, fordi vi rigtig gerne vil udvikle byen i samarbejde med alle dem, der har en interesse i København. Vores nye vision, der har vi sat 3 pejlemærker for, hvad det er, vi gerne vil i byen. En levende by, hvor der er arrangementer, liv, plads til alle. Det er en ansvarlig by. Vi lever altså i en verden med begrænsede ressourcer, så affald, genbrug, cirkulær økonomi er også en by, der tager ansvar. Og det er en by med kant. En by med kant handler om det uventede. Simpelthen at invitere ind til at skabe nye projekter, som vi ikke har defineret.
For mig er kant noget, hvor jeg bliver nysgerrig. Det er noget, som giver mig en fornemmelse af at blive klogere, når man nogle gange føler sig en lille smule på gyngende grund.
Jeg sad lige ude på linjen på Nørrebro, som i 30 år har stået fuldstændig forladt og tilgroet og fyldt med affald og alt muligt andet. Det her skal ikke være et privat område, men et offentligt og åbent område, hvor der er plads til mange forskellige og mange flere aktører, som har mulighed for at skabe nogle ting på en midlertidig basis, indtil at området kunne udvikles til noget andet.
Midlertidighed skaber muligheden for afgrund. Så vi tør drømme lidt større, hvis tingene er midlertidige.
Det giver enormt stor lokal ejerskab og stolthed, altså når borgerne selv har været med til at sætte deres præg.
Vi drømmer om at skabe en industri, som kan berige byen, både socialt og miljømæssigt. Bier giver flere blomster, flere insekter og producerer det her fantastiske honning.
Det er jo spørgsmålet om at give slip, så de gode idéer kan få lov til at blomstre.
Der er ildsjæle, der driver sådan nogle ting frem, men de skal lige have lidt hjælp. Og det kræver ligesom en ny dans mellem offentlige og private aktører. Politikere og forvaltninger skal være med til at give slip, og borgere og interessenter og sådan noget skal gå væk fra rollen bare som krævende forbrugere.
De seneste 5-10 år har vi set enormt mange forandringer. Borgerne er eksperter i deres eget liv, så er de nødt til at have en samskabelse omkring de store udfordringer, vi står overfor.
So this is it. Thank you. I don't know if you have time for questions. Yeah. Do you have any questions? Yeah.
My name is Andrea, and I'm actually a city planner by profession. I work with consulting engineers as a non-profit organization here in Belgrade. We have a sister association in Copenhagen as well, which is FRI. It will be Consulting Engineers of Denmark. I don't know what's the Danish FRI acronym, but anyway, we're well connected. In terms of the city government, I'm wondering what are the key challenges of the Copenhagen city government? Because I believe we will have some similar challenges, but you're more advanced than we are here in terms of how you create solutions and overall how you implement solutions. That's the first question, and the second question goes to you mentioned how you collect your past experiences in order to kind of use that knowledge and to know how to plan for the future, of course. How do you actually do that? Like, is there a certain entity or a department or people within your government that do that, or how do you actually do that collection? I'm really curious to hear.
Well, first question about the government. The challenges are, of course, one thing. It's all about politics. It's about having the ideas, but also the boldness and the will to do these, to take these decisions on how to create a better city and how to provide service to the citizens. Like you saw in the movie, the one remark was that on the one hand we have to be better at communicating with the public, but the public also has to accept the fact that they are not just users in a big supermarket of solutions. They have to contribute, and they cannot just expect the city to be a service provider. One thing. So that culture is kind of changing now, but we have about, I think it's 7 parties in our city council that have to agree on things. On the other hand, the council is, which is 57 members. The city is divided into 7 administrations, and each administration has its own head of the committee, or we call them mayors. So we have the Lord Mayor, which also is the head of the economical section, the economical administration. And then we have 6 other mayors taking care of their own administrations. And these mayor posts, the mayor seats, are divided between the parties. So after an election, it's not just the Social Democrats, because they won the election, they take all the mayor seats. It's even though you have a majority between the parties, and they will negotiate about who is going to be mayor for the different sections. So we make sure that there's in any way different political viewpoints represented in all the administrations and representing the citizens in a sense. So my mayor at the moment is one of the far left parties, which have a big focus on sustainability. Biking is one of his major issues, and he usually goes out in the public and says we don't want any cars in the city, they just have to go away. This is balanced by an economical, by the Lord Mayor, who is a passionate car driver, but also wants to make sure that everybody's interest is balanced in the right way. So of course they have battles about how much should be put into biking infrastructure, how should we balance the interests of people using the car on an everyday basis. And of course we also have deliveries and workers coming into the city, like craftsmen coming in with the trucks, and they have to do this. So how do we do this? So the challenge is really, like I stated before, balancing public-private interests and then taking these decisions, doing the right decision at the right moment. And we only have a 4-year election span. So politicians being who they are, they of course want to have a lot of solutions done quickly within their period, because they don't know if they're going to be there after 4 years. But also they're kind of wary about, should we do this now? Will I be killing myself politically because I promoted this? We had one of my former mayors actually had a really bad election after this period of being a technical environmental mayor, that he actually put forward this proposition of closing down one of the streets, which I showed you before, this main connection between the suburbs and Copenhagen, and widening the bike paths and creating this atmosphere of now we want more bikes in the city. And I think that was part of both politically within the parties, but also in the public, that he had to go afterwards because nobody liked him anymore. But he was a strong promoter of this, and he made this as one goal, that we have to promote more biking in the city and promote sustainability. And this can lead to political suicide, but it also leads to that we now build on the spaces, because there was a politician who really promoted this one out of it. So I think the challenges are that there's limited resources, even though Copenhagen has a big income on tax, going from being almost bankrupt 30 years ago, we were bankrupt, it was subsidized by the state heavily. Now we have a huge capital, like I think 4 billion euros in the city administration money box, which is to be used for maintenance and development, and so we have a lot of money. But we also need this decision making about how this money should be distributed, flow back to the city. This is an everyday hassle about between the parties and also between the different political viewpoints and balancing the interests by the public also, which is heavily influencing the politicians, especially in years where they know there's election coming up. I don't know if I answered your question in that sense.
So would you say in general that the public interest overweighs the political interest in most
Not
of the
always,
cases? Or?
But on the one hand we try to invite the public to be part of this development, but we also want to keep them at arm's length because they don't know the right solutions. Ultimately, I mean, they all have different interests, and they all have very specific interests. Somebody not wanting a high-rise building in the middle of the city is usually one living right next to it. So they don't want to be the view disturbed or have shadow in their backyards. So that's their main interest. That's why they don't like high-rises. Somebody else who has uses their car on an everyday basis doesn't want urban space to take over everything because they want their car parked right in front of their apartment. So this is another service we have to provide for it, but also balancing the fact that only 50% of Copenhageners own a car, and why should the rest of the other 50% pay for public investments in parking spaces when they don't have a car? So it's not their problem. So this kind of balancing is the main issue, I think. And me as a planner and as a public servant, I have to sometimes to persuade politicians into different kind of thinking because we are the experts and we know what's happening. So a lot of these sustainability issues have a hard track until the moment when you have this cloudburst and 5,000 basements were flooded. They had to react on it and they had to acknowledge the fact that the climate is changing, apparently. So sometimes it's coincidence, sometimes it's just hard work trying to develop the strategies and the policies and helping our politicians to do the right decisions. But within the city council, it's always the issue of how much money are we going to spend now and how much do we need in the future and what are the needs and what are the expectations by the public during our 4-year period. So this is the main issue, I think. The other question was
about collecting experiences.
Yeah,
How
I
do
think
you
it's
manage that?
it's kind of experiential planning. We call it. We don't have a database. We do analysis of how did it go with the different solutions, but we kind of build new experiences and new policies on top of old experiences. So developing this urban life initiatives and being better at creating urban space. It's just been a natural development from more people moving to Copenhagen, improving the urban spaces, improving the public infrastructure, and improving the attractiveness of Copenhagen, attracting more people, and thus being forced to better the solutions and create more urban spaces. So it's showing, it's not telling. So we have to try out these new solutions, and then we have to build on top of them. We used to have an urban life and architecture department, which is now shut down, but they were actually the ones driving having experts working on urban space only. So they were kind of an in-house consultancy business for me as a planner to tell me how to create good urban space in my local detail plans. Now this has seeped into the way of thinking about the city, and even the architects and developers on the outside have adapted to this new thinking. So maybe we don't need this section anymore, but still it has been a process of trying to look at what other cities do in respect of urban life, and then trying to allocate the money and the resources to try to develop this, because if we don't do that, nothing is going to happen. But the experiences are just lying on top of each other, and we compare our local plans from now with ones 10 years ago, and in this sense, we try to build up on knowledge and experiences that help us make the right decisions. And in my office, I have a guy who just turned 70, and I think he wants to work there until he's carried out of the building. And we also have fairly young people like me, we have really young planners coming in and out, working there for periods. So we have this influx of new knowledge, and we have these guys who just have a whole database inside their head, knowing everything about the history and why did we do this before, and why we're doing this today. So in that sense, we have this kind of natural experiential bank of people working there and trying to develop over the years. But actually, we can be much better at doing analysis and trying to do reports and trying to map our experiences. Find out why did this work go well, why did this not? Like the bridge I was showing you doesn't mention where they emerged a whole new meeting point for people we didn't expect it to happen. We just wanted better bike lanes. With the effect that this bridge is now traffic calm, and now it's the most sunny place in the city. You can watch the water, you can watch the birds, you can watch other people biking by. And it's fantastic. You have these guys on their cargo bikes with huge sound systems coming out in the summer, which creates this whole new atmosphere in the middle of Copenhagen, which wasn't there before. And this is also the attempt we do with this new strategy, that we have to let go of planning too much. We can't control everything, and we can't create everything from nothing. We have to let in the public, and let grassroots people and people who have good initiatives lead the way and show us what to do, and then we can create a framework for them afterwards. Maybe. And temporary use of public space and of unused space is one of the big issues right now. When I come back from here, I have to write a big note, big memo for one of my directors to try to induce a new way of thinking, and how can we implement temporary use of the city in our planning, which is like the planning law does not apply for temporary use. Either you use something, you're allowed to use it forever until there's a new plan, or either you don't. I cannot do a local plan where I say, for a period of time, this should be used for this, and after that, it should be used for something else. So it's local initiatives that create these kind of things. But it's also attractive for developers, because they have spaces in the middle of the city. They maybe not have collected the money or the big ideas for how to develop the space, and in the meantime they can rent out the space cheap to creative people, to artists, to people using the city in a different way, and then creating interest for this area, and suddenly you have a whole different interest by investors, because the Copenhagen is starting to use this area in a whole different way than they used to before. So, so we move on to the next slide.
Yes.
Next lecture.